As a somewhat of an introduction to this part, going back on what I said about how things are just how they sound, they're made just how they sound, and to make sense of that, we're going to deconstruct a few different sounds and go in depth so that you can associate them and those sounds and those techniques with other sounds. So to start off, let's work with the noise oscillator. Let's turn these off and we'll open up, and I'll go in depth more with these later, but for now I'll just show you some sounds. The metallic sound. Okay, so we have that. Let's modulate that envelope. Let's work on like a clanking type of sound that you'd hear in like a warehouse or something like that. So let's go and let's modulate the amp. And let's add some reverb to that. And right there, just that simply, you kind of have that. You might hear. And to add some cool variation to that, you can change the velocity so that the amount you hit it, how hard you press it. Depending on how hard you press it, it changes the sound. So that's something you can use to create variation in sounds if you were trying to score a film or something like that. And in the same sense, the key tracking also works in that, however, where you're pressing on the keyboard changes the sound. So I'll work my way up. And that's another example. Moving on from there, you can hear had some delay, so maybe we're in like a hall or something. And then moving on from there, let's look at something like a laser type sound. And if you were to go to like a sine wave and you would automate your LFO, and just by modulating the pitch with an LFO, you can get that sound of a laser. And if you change so going further onto that, we can look into something like, since we were doing this we're working with pitch, let's turn this off, let's start a whole new one. And let's go back to something like the noises again. Let's work with this. There, that's like a track stop type of deal. So with that, let's work with this envelope, and the envelope will move the color down. So it's like the effect of a track stopping, and that's a great example of something. And going further with that, instead of modulating, you heard kind of sounds like rustling. So let's add some reverb. Maybe a little bit of delay. And some release. And then we'll do the velocity in this. Wait. There we go. So it's kind of like leaves rustling. And then on top of that, let's go with an example of like bees buzzing, and I did an example of this in another video. And let's add some voices, and we'll detune it. And then you want to further add some chorus to it, and you want to add some vibrato, which is kind of like the pitch thing, the LFO that I explained earlier. Mapping it to the pitch of an oscillator and changing the rate up fairly high, so it's just modulating the pitch a slight bit. So let's turn the vibrato up. And let's modulate our pitch anyway to give it more sound, but very slowly. And let's not do it a lot, actually. Let's high pass it so that you don't get too much deep sound, and change our and then you can add some small reverb and EQ it up, and then you have an interesting, a nice like a bee's nest type of sound. And then if you were to further think in terms of something like maybe like a thump, or what's neat about the noises, which I'll go into briefly here, and then I'll explain them later. But Massive did a lot of the hard work, like amp noise. Let's turn this oscillator off, and you can hear it sounds like an amp noise. It's like feedback almost, and I've used that in songs. It's really a great effect. You don't have to search for feedback now. And the tape hiss is similar. Like how tapes used to have that hiss sound. That's great to fill in a track. Some of that, which I'll get into in the dance section. But overall, it's just a matter of thinking of a sound in your head and how it would be modulated, and then working, and you can keep tweaking these different things until you get that sound, and then you'll know, and then you can apply that technique to other things. And it's just making those connections that will help you further yourself as a producer and a musician, and even a sound engineer. So in the next section, I'm going to look at the noise oscillator and some of these effects, the chords and whatnot, and how you can use these. And I'll show you a few in here. And then after that, I'm going to show you an approach to this similar thing, but from a dance music aspect, and using some of these and how you can use them to enhance your dance productions.